This podcast may contain explicit language. Buck up, never say die. We'll get along. Modern Times is next. Welcome to the Greatest Movie of All Time podcast, the show that uses a grading style to redefine what the greatest movies are. I'm Tom Duncan.
And I'm Dana Duncan, or maybe I'm Patton Oswald, I guess.
You get so sensitive every time we see one of those TikTok comments, and I don't get it. Like, what's there so bad about being compared to somebody? You know, it could be worse. You could be, like, in the Epstein files or something.
I doubt that highly, but anyway.
Well, yeah, you aren't rich and powerful enough connected to have been in the Epstein files, but yeah. I'm just making a soliloquy here. Tonight, for our 300th episode and our 6th anniversary, we discuss the industrial satire Modern Times from 1936, celebrating its 90th anniversary. Written and directed by Charlie Chaplin, cinematography by Roland Totherow and Ira Morgan, music by Charlie Chaplin, editing by Charlie Chaplin and Willard Nico, starring... I'm giving you two guesses here on this one. Is it? It's Charlie Chaplin, right?
Yes.
I mean, yeah, okay. It says as a factory worker, but it's really the Tramp character, which we all know. Paulette Goddard as Ellen Peterson, and this was difficult for you the other day. This is the correct pronunciation. The Gaiman. Just so in case you have to say that later, but.
The Gaiman.
Correct. Henry Bergman as the cafe proprietor. They have some like really creative names back in the day. Stanley Tiny Sanford as Big Bill. An actual character name. Wow. Chester Conklin as a mechanic. Yeah. It was fun while it lasted. Al Ernest Garcia as president of the Electro Steel Company. Stanley Blystone as Gaiman's father. Richard Alexander as the prison cellmate. Good Lord. Cecil Reynolds as the minister. Myra McKinney as the minister's wife. She didn't even get like anything other than a possessive there. Murdoch Macquarie as J. Whitcomb Billows, inventor. Ooh, I mean, that's actual character name again. All right. Does it last? No. Wilfred Lucas as the juvenile officer. Edward Lasainte as Sheriff Coulier. Sheriff Cooler? I think that's, yeah. Okay. Fred Malatesta as cafe head waiter, and Sammy Stein as the turbine operator. I mean, where did they come up with all of these character names? It's just so great. Background for the movie: Modern Times premiered on February 25th, 1936, which is 90 years to the day when this episode is releasing, and 6 years to the exact day that our first episode also released. On an estimated budget of $1.5 million, Modern Times is said to have grossed $1.8 million in rentals for 1936, making it a top 3 grossing film of that year. Dad, can you name either film that placed ahead of it?
In 1936. Oh.
One is a Best Picture winner, and the other is named after...
on the Bounty?
No, you are 1 year ahead. It's the year after. And the other one is named after a major North American city.
Omaha.
So number 1 for the year at $2.7 million was a film called San Francisco. And number 2 was The Great Ziegfeld at $2 million for that particular year. A film that I have defended on multiple platforms.
It's okay.
Modern Times was also a top 15 grossing film of that decade. Even at the time, critics hailed Modern Times as a classic and a seminal work of Charlie Chaplin, including one publication, including the film in its best of the decade list. Nevertheless, the film did attract criticism for being almost completely silent. Chaplin feared that the mystery and romanticism of the Tramp character would be ruined if he spoke, and also that it would alienate his fans in non-English speaking territories. His future films, however, would be full-fledged quote-unquote talkies, although without the character of the Little Tramp. So that is reserved for his silent films. Still, in the years since, the film has been widely celebrated. The Village Voice ranked Modern Times at number 62 in its top 250 best films of the century list in 1999, based on a poll of critics. In 2002, the film was included on the list of the top 100 essential films of all time by the National Society of Film Critics. The film was voted at number 74 on the list of 100 greatest films by the prominent French magazine Cahiers du Cinéma, which I always butcher, but I do it anyway, in 2008. In the 2012 Sight and Sound polls, it was ranked the 63rd greatest film ever made in the critics poll and 20th in the directors poll. In the earlier 2002 version of the list, the film ranked 35th among critics. In 2015, Modern Times was ranked 67th on the BBC's 100 Greatest American Films list. The film was voted at number 12 on the list of the 100 Greatest Comedies of All Time by a poll of 253 critics from 52 countries conducted by the BBC in 2017. In 2021, the film ranked 49th on Time Out magazine's list of the 100 best movies of all time. The film was also included by the Vatican in a list of important films compiled in 1995 under the category of art. Modern Times has been recognized by the AFI on the following lists. In 1998, it was on AFI's 100 Years, 100 Movies at number 81. In 2000, it was on their 100 Years, 100 Laughs at number 33. And in their updated 10th anniversary edition, it was in 100 Years, 100 Movies at number 78. In 1989, Modern Times was one of the first 25 films selected by the Library of Congress for preservation in the National Film Registry. It currently holds a 98% among critics on Rotten Tomatoes, a 98 score on Metacritic, and a 4.3 out of 5 on Letterboxd. But of course, we cannot do this by ourselves. We had to bring somebody back that could only be fitting for our 6th anniversary, one of our legendary guests, making his 18th appearance on the show to date. A man who needs no introduction, but we give him one anyway. The host and creator of the Best Picture cast, a 5-time club member, a CLP contributor, the Irish Iron Man from Long Island. Please welcome back Kieran B.
Happy to be back here on this wonderful occasion here. The seventh, we're heading into the 7th year of Gmote here. And this is episode 300, you said?
Exact on the dot.
Fantastic. I'm happy we're not covering the movie 300 for this.
That's fair.
I've been here many a time before, and I'm sure a lot of your audience wishes I was as silent as the film we're discussing today. But I am back and happy to be here and honored to be selected for this big occasion.
Well, thank you for being with us, of course. I know that you selected this film a little bit reluctantly because you are not a so-called Chaplin fan. I don't know. Are you a silent film fan?
I would say that, like, generally speaking, silent film isn't my thing. There's probably not a ton of people dancing around in the streets where silent film is their thing at this point. I mean, but I do appreciate film history, and I do like getting myself into like the mindset of a different era's audience. You know, when it comes to Charlie Chaplin, certainly not my cup of tea. I do have a good respect for the craft, though. I think, Tom, we've talked on the side, which is we're more Buster Keaton people when it comes to the two of them. And I will say that of the Chaplins I've seen, this one is my favorite. And I'm not coming in here as a guest, you know, for the Modern Times fans out there going, God, what'd they bring this guy in for? I'm not coming in to just bury Charlie Chaplin. I do have respect for what he does, and this is my favorite of it. So I'm looking forward to exploring it through that lens.
I would agree. Of the Chaplin films that I've seen, and I think you kind of almost need to watch them in timeline order to somewhat appreciate the development that he goes through from something like a Gold Rush up through this point, where I think there's subtle or small changes, even though he's doing kind of the same character. The development in film seems like vast from almost film to film, and the storytelling gets more grandiose. The stunt work gets more grandiose. The sets become larger and more involving in this. And obviously, we're going to get to it, but sound does play a role in this, even though there's very little, if any, spoken dialogue in this particular film. Now, I know you, like myself, are a completionist, and you completed the AFI Top 100, at least the initial list. So I have to assume that your relationship to this movie is through that as well as my own.
That is spot on, just as well as the other two Chaplin films I've seen, The Gold Rush, as you mentioned before, and City Lights, which was the third of the three. So this was Modern Times is the first Chaplin film that I saw, and then into Gold Rush, which is my least favorite of the three, and then into City Lights.
And I would agree with that ranking in my own personal finding of them. I haven't gotten to like The Kid or the updated Gold Rush. I think there was either like a Criterion version of the Gold Rush that was like the restored version from 1925, but he redid it in between City Lights and Modern Times. And we've covered The Great Dictator on this show before, which is a very different film. I mean, it's got a lot of the same staples of Chaplin in it, but it's obviously a different character and a different essence as to kind of its anti-war protest in the moment, very anti-fascist. It's like quite evident to be poking fun and satire in that moment at it. But I like the way that this incorporates a little bit of sound, so it doesn't feel quite so distant. I think that's part of my issue with like even City Lights. It feels like it's still off in the distance, even though we're in the talking era, 31, we're 2 or 3 years into this new phase. It doesn't really use sound effects in the way that this movie does. And I think that gives it a lot more character than some of the other films. So it's a little bit more open to me. But Dad, let's bring you in here. What is your relationship to the film? What was the first time that you saw this?
This time.
Oh, so you're brand new to it.
Yep,
Okay.
I had not seen it before. I had seen the scene of the roller skating and the figure eight, but that's the only part I'd seen.
Now, you had declared a couple of weeks ago, and we've been kind of taking this trip through the 1920s and 30s early on in this season. So we've discussed Dracula from 31. We've discussed Sabotage from 1936. We've now discussed this film. We discussed The General last week. You had declaratively said that you thought City Lights was Chaplin's best film without seeing this film. Are you still so clear on what you think is his best?
This is his best.
Okay.
Although the how to put it, I guess City Lights is the best of the Tramp. The Tramp character in this is not quite the same. I mean, the Tramp is not the person running the assembly line. It's not quite the same character. It is and it isn't. But if you're
it's got some of the same features, but I'll let you continue.
But I mean, I guess what I'm going to is if you're using the traditional character that had permeated through the 1920s into the early 30s, then City Lights is the best one of the true characterization of the Tramp.
Okay.
This exceeds that. This is a bigger thing. This is like the Tramp goes to Hollywood.
I think there's a cross mix in this movie, and I think we're going to get to quite a bit of this as we kind of discuss it, because I guess until I started doing some of the research for the film, I didn't know that this felt in a way like Chaplin saying goodbye to the era and to that character. And the more I thought about it thematically, I feel this one is deeper and richer in more observational and sociological themes throughout the film than any others. City Lights is much more of a personal and I would say almost an intimate film at times, because it's really involving like two weaving narratives throughout that film. But to me, this one says a lot more about industry and about the changing times, modernization, a whole lot of things that were going on in the film. And I think it somewhat is also projecting where Chaplin feels his film career is going.
Absolutely. Yeah. ton of symbolism for this in where he's at with still making silent films, absorbing a ton of criticism for not shaking his model. And, some of the stuff that's covered in like A Singin' in the Rain of, just sticking to the shtick and not evolving. And this movie is kind of a bit of a wink at evolution as it's using industrialization as its basis. But that little song and dance at the end is certainly a wink to the audience. And one of the reasons why I hold this film in pretty high regard is I think he takes his old format and pretty geniusly translates it into the new talkie era of films. And if I'm not mistaken, is this his final silent film of sorts? I think
yes.
He goes on to make mostly talkies after this.
Yes. The Great Dictator's all talking film at that point, and he makes one other major film after that, and I want to say in like the 1950s, but
Correct.
This is like his second to last real major film before he's kind of done.
He was kind of done because he wanted to be done at that point in time. He made quite a bit of money off of United Artists and off of his own movies. But still, I think this film by itself symbolizes that Chaplin realized that he had popularity, he had money, he had connections, and he realized he had something more to say about the world and culture and the direction of the way things were going to go. And so he created this film to take that opportunity to say the things he wanted to say about society, the economic circumstances of the times. I mean, after City Lights, he went on this 2-year tour, and he spent time with Gandhi and Churchill and H.G. Wells and Einstein. For that matter, he was a lot of the early scene is patterned after Ford Motor Company. In fact, the selection of the actor to play the head of the company, he got somebody as close to looking like Henry Ford as he could possibly get, because that's where he learned all about workers having nervous breakdowns in the factories and such. I think it had a lot to say, or he had a lot to say and wanted to say it. And it was at a time, a crossroads really in the country. When this was in production in 1935 for release in 36, 1935, we did not know what was going to ultimately happen. We still had Huey Long preaching a populist movement of wiping out the wealthy and taking and redistributing all the money. It wasn't until he was assassinated that came to an end. We had Father Conklin, who was preaching on there kind of almost a Catholic white supremacist fascism concept. And he was backed by Charles Lindbergh, that ultimately led into the America First movement at that time. So 1936, we didn't know. It could have been that we became communist. It could have been that we became more of a socialist country. We didn't know what was ultimately going to happen. We started seeing the Depression end, but it was not clear. In hindsight, we see now, oh yeah, things, but at the time it was very uncertain. And I think Chaplin really made a point of trying to express the uncertainty and his own views on it, which is probably one of the reasons why so many people felt it was a communist ilk, because he did have so many negative tropes within the film about industrialism and capitalism in general.
I would say, and I think this is a common narrative, that this is his it's his first overtly political movie. But you're correct. It has a very unflattering portrayal of industry, of the industry makers, and for what it's worth, the British Labour magazine or whatever, the Liberal Party at the time, basically hailed this as a liberal propaganda. The Nazis banned it. And Chaplin was eventually investigated by HUAC as a communist because of this movie.
Yes. Which is why he didn't come back to the United States until his Academy Award in 1972.
So, Dad, do you have a plot summary ready for us?
I do. In modern times, Charlie Chaplin returns again as the Little Tramp, a factory worker who struggles to keep up with the fast pace of modern machines. On an assembly line, he tightens bolts all day until the pressure drives him nearly insane. After a nervous breakdown, he is sent to a hospital. When he gets out, he is mistaken for a communist leader during a workers' protest and is thrown in jail. Even in jail, his clumsy good luck helps him stop a prison break. But once he is free, he finds it's hard to survive in a world ruled by machines and money. During his struggles, the tramp meets a poor young woman played by Paulette Goddard. She is hungry, homeless, and trying to care for her sisters after her father dies. The two form a close bond and dream of building a simple life together. They face job losses, hunger, and constant trouble with the law. Yet they refuse to give up hope. In the final scene, Chaplin and Goddard walk down an open road, determined to keep going, despite the hardships of the modern world.
Thank you, Dad. So what is the movie about?
On face value, it's commentary on the changing times and the industrialization of America and what that's doing to the workforce, how the common man or even the less than common man is forced to catch up in the race in order to just keep ahead afloat. And, as I said before, I think he is also commenting on the movie industry and how technology has changed what's gone on in the production of films. I mean, from a 2026 standpoint, we look back and say, all right, they added sound and, the industry they fleshed out the technology and now they're going. Of course, here we are in 2026, not knowing what AI is going to do to filmmaking. So there's, 90 years later, you look at it and you can maybe get yourself in the mindset of someone like a Charlie Chaplin saying, hey, they're taking the bread off my plate. So I think there is a lot of playing into what the movie is literally saying and then how life is affecting him off the screen.
I mean, I would agree. I think it is difficult to watch this film without the historical context of the Depression at the time and how inseparable that is to a lot of what's going on in the rather obvious political narratives that are in the film. But also, the Little Tramp has always been kind of a character down on his luck. So for him to kind of be this seminal figure in the middle of a depression where, frankly, everybody's down on their luck, I think coincides with everything that's going on around them. And then you get to project all these additional themes that I think are there. But I think what Chaplin is ultimately trying to say is about perseverance. It's about hope. It is about being caught up in a modern world or a modern machine that really doesn't care about the individual all that much. I think part of the reason of being in a factory and an assembly line more specifically is that it dehumanizes. And I think there's a lot of pieces of this movie that are trying to objectively make him feel human as opposed to all the forces that are working against that. But then ultimately it also is trying to tell me, and I think that's the importance of this side character with Paulette Goddard, is things will be okay. You will have hope as long as you have someone to share your troubles with. And to me, that's where the film ends up is that we have each other, we'll be okay. We could keep moving forward, not knowing what's going to come next.
Yeah, it's well said.
Ultimately, though, the machines and capitalism, both figuratively and literally, eat the tramp up and spit him out.
I mean, they do, but again, the last lines of the film are telling in where his attitude is. I think the film would be different if he just kind of accepted his lot in life, but rather he's ready to move on into the horizon of whatever's next. They're going to go to another town and they're going to start over and they're going to do something else.
Except that what happens, he's not following the lead of being in the factory or the workforce. He's on his own, and he and Goddard are walking into the sunset under their own controls and their own auspices. He's not following anybody's lead but his own.
Fair point.
This is not a capitalism is good film.
No, I don't think it in any way any of us has said that.
So, but then again, said by a person who is a multimillionaire who had made lots of money and never really had to worry about working ever again in his life.
But he had gone the independent route of setting his own thing up and working against the larger forces or the larger cogs of the film industry. And frankly, most of what his reputation of building something like a United Artists was to support more independent people and return a lot more of the money to the makers of the art as opposed to just the producers or the investors. And so I think a lot of that is commentary within this as a larger voice.
Yes, but it also had to do with government regulation because the government got involved and threatened the movie industry because all the studios owned their own theaters. And so therefore, United Artists and any of the independent film companies could not get into most of the bigger movie houses in the major cities because they were owned by the studios. And they blocked them out. So they filed antitrust, which forced the sale so that they had to subdivide. So companies that had movie interests like Lowe sold their movie interest off and kept the theaters. So it happened to be that government intervention and antitrust really benefited him as well. So it wasn't just his own ability. It was utilizing government regulation for that purpose as well. I just find it, and the reason I bring this up is it's just kind of interesting. I always find that people who are critical of things generally have a bit of being a, why am I drawing a blank as to the term? Yes. They have a tendency to be hypocrites about how they got there themselves.
Did you know? The iconic depiction of Chaplin working frantically to keep up with an assembly line later inspired comedy routines, including Disney's Der Fuhrer's Face, Donald Duck alternately assembling artillery shells and saluting portraits of Adolf Hitler, and an episode of I Love Lucy titled Job Switching. Lucy and Ethel trying to keep up with an ever-increasing volume of chocolate candies, eventually stuffing them in their mouths, hats, and blouses. The opening of a fantasy sequence in the film in which the unemployed factory worker trips over a footstool upon entering the living room of his dream home with the Gaiman inspired a similar opening to the Dick Van Dyke Show. So it's like hitting all the Dana favorite spots here.
Well, Dick Van Dyke was a big fan of Chaplin as well as Laurel and Hardy, so yes.
I suppose I could see that. But you famously included a reference to this episode of I Love Lucy in one of your federal briefs, and apparently it took hold because they started using that as evidence in some of their orders.
Correct. In fact, it's been cited in a couple of briefs in the Seventh Circuit Court of Appeals.
So, come full circle.
Yes.
Did you know? According to Paulette Goddard, Sir Charles Chaplin was deeply and profoundly involved in the recording of the musical score. He spent days upon days in the recording studio writing themes, and only left when Goddard begged him. Did you know? The musical score for the film, inspired by a sequence in the first act love duet from Puccini's opera Tosca, which everybody here remembers, was eventually turned into a top 10 hit, Smile, which I have to admit, I included this specifically because while I was listening to the score, I thought for sure it had to remind me of a song. And so I looked this up afterwards because in 1954, John Turner and Jeffrey Parsons added the lyrics and title to the song with the lyrics specifically inspired from the themes in the film itself. Nat King Cole did the original version that charted in the US at number 10 and in the UK at number 2. It has since been covered by numerous artists, including Jimmy Durante, Sammy Davis Jr., Tony Bennett, Robert Downey Jr., Lady Gaga, and Michael Bublé. And it is a fantastic song, in my opinion.
I agree. Yeah, all the crooners got their hands on it.
Very much so. Did you know Charlie Chaplin devoted 8 days to filming the department store roller skating scene where he skates blindfolded on the edge of the 4th floor, coming within inches of falling over the edge into the deep stairwell below. The dangerous large drop was actually a painted scene on a pane of glass carefully placed in front of the camera to align with the existing set and create the illusion of a great height.
Very cool effect.
I think I've seen like a TikTok video of like trying to basically diagram that, or like removing that one pane or showing how it was done, something to that effect, where it was like they had the original footage without it and then they added the pane back in. So it was kind of neat to see. And I can't remember where I had that, but I'm sure I might have sent it to Dad at one point in time, because we share TikTok videos back and forth constantly.
Is that scene not in another movie also? Like, is it in The Joker or something like that? I don't know why The Joker is coming to mind, but I feel like there's a character is watching that scene in another recent movie.
Yeah, it might be. I can't recall, but I mean, it's a fairly famous Chaplin scene to pull out. I mean, that and him waking up in the middle of the statue from City Lights are probably two of the most iconic to just randomly have somebody have on somewhere.
Yeah. The same video also had Harold Lloyd's hanging off the clock. And it was actually a stage that was set on top of a building and shot at an angle so that it looked like he was hanging off. And all the drop was only about 2 feet.
Did you know? Discounting later parodies and novelty films, this was the last major American film to make use of the silent film conventions, such as title cards for dialogue. The very last dialogue title card for the film, and thus it can be said the entire silent era belongs to the tramp who says, "Buck up, never say die, we'll get along."
So that, I mean, that, well, you guys were kind of debating about the final shot and whether it's hopeful or whether it's you're damning or commenting on where, you know, not being proud of where things are at. You know, I lend more towards it's hopeful, but I think it does work on both sides. He's taking what he has with what he has, whether it's his fans or his life or what he's prospered from it. And he's walking into the horizon and saying goodbye to not just the era, but that character as well. And while I view it as hopeful, it's certainly an object of necessity. You know, he's leaving because he has to, not because he's choosing to. And his career would follow that path too. So it is fitting that this is like the final silent film.
There are multiple ways to obviously read that, I think, pivotal scene in cinema history. And whatever your interpretation may be, it probably has a lot of your projections on what the silent era means to the history of film for you. Did you know? The film originally ended with Sir Charles Chaplin's character suffering a nervous breakdown and being visited in hospital by the gayman who has now become a nun. This ending was filmed, though apparently only still photographs from the scene exist today. They are included in the 2003 DVD release of the film. Chaplin dropped this ending and shot a different, more hopeful ending instead. I think it works on a better level. That kind of despair, you can leave that for others.
Yeah. That's probably how he felt on the inside. And he's like, let me project where I have to go next instead.
I did see the photos, by the way. I found them online.
Oh, you did? Okay. Did you know? Chaplin allows the tramp to speak on camera for the first time during the restaurant scene, but insisted that what the tramp says be universal. Therefore, the song the tramp sings is in gibberish, but it is possible to follow the story he tells by watching his hand gestures.
That's cool.
I wondered if it was Italian, but some of it seemed French.
I thought it was French.
Some of it seemed Spanish because, I mean, all of them are very close. But, yeah.
There's some of it that's actually Yiddish.
Okay. Yeah. And finally, did you know this was Chaplin's first overtly political themed film, and its unflattering portrayal of industrial society generated controversy in some quarters upon its initial release. Writing in the Liberal News, the official magazine of the British Liberal Party, in October 1936, Willoughby Dewar, that's such a British name, observed that modern times should be seen by every young liberal. It is, among other things, a piece of first-class liberal propaganda. No complaint there. In Nazi Germany, propaganda minister Joseph Goebbels banned the film from being shown because of its alleged advocacy of communism. This was one of the films which, because of its political sentiments, convinced the House Un-American Activities Committee that Chaplin was a communist, a charge he adamantly denied. And so with that looks like a great spot for our first break. We'll be right back. Before we jump back into the episode, next week for our 301st episode, we welcome our newest celebrity guest and superfan, Ryan H., to the show to discuss the animated noir caper, Zootopia, from 2016, celebrating its 10th anniversary. Directed by Byron Howard and Rich Moore, written by Jared Bush and Phil Johnston. Cinematography by Nathan Warner and Brian Leach. Music by Michael Giacchino. Editing by Fabrienne Raleigh and Jeremy Milton, starring Jennifer Goodwin, Jason Bateman, Idris Elba, and Jenny Slate. You won't want to miss that one, so watch ahead of the show by searching the Real Good app to find where it's streaming for you. That's REELGOOD. And before we get much further, let's throw it to our guest, Kieran. What have you been up to, and where can people find you?
Yes, Best Picture Cast. That's where you can find me and my colorful cohorts. We, just like you guys, are just celebrated our 6th anniversary. So it has been 6 years of making these crazy Oscar-based podcasts, and we are embarked on our 7th year as well. We celebrated our anniversary with Oppenheimer, the 2023 winner, and we had a nice little show. Your guys' voices appeared there in that one. Thank you for your contributions there. We just released an episode on Gandhi, a sometimes maligned Best Picture winner that you, Tom, are a staunch defender of.
That is correct.
And we have episodes coming up on Terms of Endearment and Hamlet and Kramer versus Kramer, and that will cap off our season. So that's what we have to finish our upcoming season, and then we'll rank the 15 movies that we've covered, the last 15 Oscar winners we covered there. So it should be a fun rankings there. We also have our Patreon up and running and launched, where we do our VHS Lounge, where I bring in a guest to watch a different VHS tape from the collection here. It's nearing around 300 VHS tapes. They come in, they pick their movie of choice, and we sit down, watch it, record afterward, and talk about the experience. So it's a fun time. And we have, I think the Silver Streak was the first one we did. We have one on Do the Right Thing, Free Willy, Chariots of Fire, which is one that's crossed over to the canon. So there's a Best Picture Cast episode on that and a VHS Lounge. And I believe our next one coming out will be Bloodwork with Jay. And I'm recording one on Friday with my dad. So doing a little G-Mote vibe there. We're going to do Major League, the 80s baseball film. Yes. Yeah.
Yeah. A favorite one that we covered 3-4 years ago, I think now at this point.
Yeah.
I think that was during our sports movie month, something to that effect. So right around the beginning of baseball. That's always a fun one.
Yeah. So that's patreon.com/Best Picture Cast. And we're Best Picture Cast wherever you get your podcasts. We cover different Best Picture winners. We only have about 9 or 10 or so left, and add on whatever wins this year to that as well. And yeah, it's looking forward to it. It's looking forward to getting to the end and then embarking on the next journey there, though. It's been a fun 6 years, as it has been for you guys. And it's amazing that we both started up around the same time and crossed paths and found our way here.
Absolutely. However, the question does remain. Is the Terror in Tiny Town a VHS collectible in that library you have behind you?
It is not. I did not go out and and add that to the collection like I have in the past for films we've covered like Grapes of Wrath and The Lost Weekend. I also did not get Modern Times, so I watched them both on Pluto, I believe. Pluto was the great service that allowed me to watch both. And there were ads. Normally ads annoy me. In this case, they came as a bit of great relief.
Wow. I mean, I knew it was 61 minutes. I think that's right.
It is a little over an hour, which I was very, very gracious that you chose not only a movie that was just an hour long, but one that was easy to access on Tubi, on Pluto, and some of the free services. So I didn't have to go hunting for this thing. And it was only an hour. But let me tell you, this was one of the longer cinematic hours I've experienced in quite a while.
No bad movie is ever short enough.
Yes. This hit my radar based on an episode of MASH in one of their last few years where they're trying to get movies, and Klinger, the best he can do is to get a all midget cast, Terror in Tiny Town. And they're like, throwing popcorn boxes at him and everything because he's going to show this film. And so I'm like, oh, I've got to find that thing. And so, of course, I kept it in the back of my head. If I had an opportunity to utilize it, I would.
And at the very start of the film, an announcer on stage comes on and describes the film exactly how Dana just did and lets the audience know what they're in for, and then says it should not be taken too seriously, at which point members of the cast come and like confront him and say, what do you mean it's not taken seriously? So that's how the whole thing starts. And it just goes from there. So I will say one of my initial marks of commentary here is that when you have all little people on the screen and it's a Western, so they're riding what is ponies. So
yes,
the scale kind of just then looks like a regular movie. When everyone's the same size, it's not, they needed like one Michael Caine in there to more or less to contrast what was going on, or a Tim Curry if Treasure Island is your Muppet of choice. Yeah, so there's that. Although later on they do, I think one of them picks up like a real size gun and it's just like gigantic. Listen, I don't know where you want me to go with this, but I have no idea why it needed to be a musical, but it was. I will say, good for the people on screen who look like they were having fun. They got an opportunity to do something that's not always there, particularly at that time. It's not great that I'm sure this was done to make fun of them, but they at least the people involved seemed to take it as seriously as they were allowed to. And I'll say the lead wasn't bad. I mean, he had some chops. He had some acting chops. Yeah, I mean, it's, again, I don't know where you want me to go.
It was a little bit of being over dramatic at times. I did think the saloon presenter did not have any ability to really challenge Marlena Dietrich in any way.
Yeah, there was a very awkward Jessica Rabbit-esque scene in this thing that I don't know. I don't know.
Okay, so I only have 2 follow-ups to this. One, are you thinking of gifting this to anybody in your regular BPC Christmas exchange? So
some of us do tend to get a little malicious with it and try to send the barbs. I know Grant has done that in the past to Joey. I think recently Joey has done it to Artie, and Artie back to Joey. I like to pick films that I think the people are going to like. Like, I'll find something that I know they haven't seen, and if I'm going to torture them, it's not because it's a bad movie. It's just like maybe a movie that's tough to digest, or something that you wouldn't normally watch. Like for Artie, I gave Citizen Kane to, which is something he should see, but it's not necessarily like a popcorn film for him here in 2026. So I tend to lean toward that. So no, I don't think that I will be wielding the terror in Tiny Town anytime soon. It would have to be a real rough Christmas for me. So it is possible, but I don't know.
I'd love to hear Artie do Citizen Kane and then say it was shot like paint by numbers.
He said that on about Oppenheimer. Is that what he said? Oh boy,
I was just
Joey,
listening to the end of that on the way in here. And, yeah,
I'm sure Christopher Nolan would love to hear that one. Yeah, Joey is who wasn't able to make the episode because we had some bad weather around here, so he is still pretty furious about how that Oppenheimer episode went down, and I think him and Grant might have even had words off screen over it. So the rankings episode will be something to watch. We'll be back to our Royal Rumble setting for that. I think the Oppenheimer stuff is going to get a little hot. So we shall see.
Yeah, I've had some of those conversations before on that movie. So it doesn't surprise me all that much. Anything that is quote unquote popular, but also accepted by critics, feels like it needs to always have this backlash of people that it's not artistic enough for me to accept it as like one of the greats. And I just, fine, if that's the way you want to be about it.
You mean half of my high school class who despised the Beatles because they were too commercial?
Yeah, well, you can't please everybody. And finally, is The Terror of Tiny Town going to make an appearance on Worst Picture Cast?
It certainly could. It certainly is eligible. Worst Picture Cast, it's been a bit since they've put anything out. I think they do have a rankings coming up, but I will certainly add it for consideration for a Worst Picture Cast episode, because I think it would absolutely slide into that groove.
I think a live watch might be in tune.
I'm the Terror of Tiny Town.
Thank you, Dad. Now, speaking of debt payments, the Oscars are only a few weeks away, and we have yet to release somebody else's payment from last year.
I'm trying to get as much as I can consumed. Somebody keeps knocking on my door during the day this week and, commenting on what I'm watching on there while I'm trying to do paperwork and writing briefs.
Well, it's not so much the amount of Oscar films that you're watching, it's that you're still not paid up on last year's debt of St. Elmo's Fire.
No.
And given my schedule, it's not very fair since last year you screwed up the scoring so badly that I have to record this with you and basically monitor, and then I have to edit the whole thing. So I don't know how much of a punishment this is for you.
Will you be singing your rendition of John Parr's St. Elmo's Fire? Like maybe a karaoke theme?
The song is by far the best part of the film.
It's a hell of a song.
Mm-hmm.
I mean,
maybe that could be the outro of that episode.
I think he almost needs to live tweet the entire thing. Oh, anyway.
Yeah.
Speaking of Oscars, we are going to be doing a live episode previewing the Oscars again this year. Dad, do we have a selected date for that or time?
I don't know. Do we? Because we talked about it, but I don't know if we ever said it.
Would we like to do that here and now?
We could.
So I believe the Oscars, in effect, is the 16th?
16th.
Yeah, 16th. Okay.
So that's Sunday, whatever that Sunday is, either the 15th
yeah,
or
okay.
the 16th.
All right, so the 15th. So traditionally, we're not going to do it during the middle of the week. We have other episodes that are going to be dropping during that. So unless we did it the 14th, the day before, which then it doesn't have a huge amount of lead time, then we're looking at the weekend before. So either the 7th or the 8th.
Yes.
What would be your preference there?
Well, we could do it on the 15th.
Why would we do it on the 15th?
Excuse me, the 8th. I misspoke.
Okay, we can do it on Sunday the 8th, and approximately what time?
We're going to be doing this as a live stream?
Correct. We don't have enough time. Well, there's not enough time in the week for me to edit 2 episodes, so.
Okay. So we could do it like 7 o'clock Central.
And at least as far as the commentary I heard from last year's live episode on our Oscars preview, we didn't have any negative feedback that it went too poorly. So 7 p.m. on the 8th?
Sure.
Okay. You heard it here first, folks. That was in real-time scheduling to nail things down, partly because I wanted to make sure that the announcement was up at least a good week before we actually recorded the episode and people had a chance to try and tune in. But I will pull everything and put it on our regular channel as well. And you don't have to catch it live, but if you want to, we'll be on our YouTube channel, Gmote Podcast, or at Gmote Podcast on YouTube, for you to be able to catch at that time. You can watch after the fact, of course, as well. And we will be covering everything that we normally do during the Oscars. I think In Memoriam is going to be very challenging this year.
It will be, yes.
Which I'm sure we're going to have some things to say when we get to that portion of the episode again this week. But we're going to be giving you our all 10 rankings of the Best Picture nominees, and then going through all of the, I think it's now 24 categories with casting this year.
That sounds correct.
I think it was 23 categories last year, so I'm pretty sure it's 24 now, which means that the tiebreaker may have a even greater holding than ever before because of the even number of categories. But all right, one final thing that I wanted to just briefly get to. Since the beginning of the year, we've added some new listeners from some new countries, and I'd just like to shout out or recognize them here. We've added listeners from the great country of El Salvador, from Ethiopia, from Madagascar, from North Macedonia, and finally, from Rwanda. Currently, our amount of countries that we've been heard on through the course of the show, including a few different territories and other places, is up to 135. So we are very thankful for all of you out in the ether that have been listening to the show during our entire 6-year run, and we hope that you're able to introduce yet a few more countries to the list. I know I said this many, many years ago, but I think it bears repeating here, that at one point my dad said he would love to have visited every country on the face of the earth. And while that is no longer physically feasibly possible, let alone financially possible, I do think that our ability to translate this show into every country on earth would be a worthwhile goal, and hopefully we can get there before one of us perspires.
Yes.
So, with that, we'll jump back into the rest of the show. Best performance is where we left off. Dad, who did you have down?
Chaplin.
Did anybody not have Chaplin?
No, I mean, I think every Charlie Chaplin film is designed for this category to take the win. It's like he knew that Gmote would exist years in advance, and he'd wanted to make sure he swept this category every time. So no, this is that would be the selection.
We did Chaplin when we did City Lights because he wrote, directed, starred in, and edited and did parts of the music. And he did the same thing again here. We had last week with Keaton basically doing everything but the music for that film. I don't know what it was about certain silent film stars that they felt like they needed to do everything in a film, but yeah. I don't think we're going to have much of an argument, but anything particular of Chaplin's performance that you would like to highlight?
I mean, doing that physical of a performance and directing the thing is pretty impressive in itself. You know, we just, like I mentioned before, we just did our Gandhi episode, and Sir Richard Attenborough was talking about the role of the director. And he said, for the most part, directors are really just part of the team. They're just members within, and they work together, with the exception of a few specific directors. And he didn't list a long list, but Chaplin was on it. He said Kurosawa, Chaplin, and I think he said Hitchcock. If you're not one of those guys, you're really just kind of a member of a working unit and a working team. But Chaplin is kind of, like you said, doing hands on everything, doing everything, and clearly a very specific vision for what he wanted to say. It's just, I'm always impressed anytime a director acts in his own movie and puts out a big performance.
I think we discussed it in City Lights that there was an anecdote by somebody in that movie that basically said Charlie Chaplin would come on every time they were going to do a scene and basically act out every single one of the parts in advance, telling them how he wanted everything done to a very meticulous level. And I think his overall comment was if Chaplin could have played all the parts, done everything himself, he would have.
I mean, it sounds completely annoying and insufferable, but that's just, I'd rather, rather work for someone else, but,
At least Stanley Kubrick and David Fincher didn't try and act in their own films. They made other people suffer for that. But moving on here, best secondary performances, who did everybody have?
Paulette Goddard.
Same.
I had the set and production design for me, and that was, I'm sorry, God, I had his name ready and then I botch it.
Well, I'll help you out a little bit here. Charles D. Hall, yes. J. Russell Spencer, although I went a little bit
Charles D. Hall was
Alfred Reeves and Bud Thackeray, because I also went with art and visual design as part of the whole aesthetic of the film, because this is probably the biggest set production version of any of Chaplin's films. Even The Great Dictator, I don't think goes to the scale of this one, where it's in the factory, or it's in the jail set, or it's inside that restaurant cabaret kind of situation. All of those had fairly large production value pieces to them, and especially inside the factory with the working machines and the rest of it. I ended up giving them collectively my most charismatic award for all that is doing, because I think it basically the entire first act of the film is taken over between Chaplin and the production design. So I would agree with you there.
There was a world where I was considering sound too, because it's interesting in a silent movie you wouldn't think about sound, but they do use really select kind of practical sound effects throughout this thing. But there's a lot of like touch based imagery in this, whether it's the gears or the conveyor belt, or there's a lot that you feel like you can reach out and grab on screen, and it really stays with you. I was at first a little shocked to hear how much the movie cost. Mm-hmm. It basically just cleared what it made. It made just about what it cost, and was like one of the highest grossing movies of the year. So it's like, how much did you think you were going to gross? You spent what any movie at like the top of it made, but they clearly spared no expense with what they put on screen, because all that gear work, all that stuff really shows out. I love the cabin. I love all that stuff, the jail cells and the department stores. Is really there's a great visual world put together here. So that was my second nod there.
And I think that this is probably the best looking, and might have a little bit to do with the cinematography, but I think a lot of that has to do with just the production value that was there, and frankly the modernizing technology that allowed them to get a much clearer version of this. I think the restoration they did on this film is spectacular.
It really is. It really is. And that leads into my charismatic, which is your guy's secondary in Paulette Goddard. I mean, she is just beautiful on screen. Her and the restoration does wonders for her as well. Like, you can really, to me, the charisma of the character is palpable there. I love her facial expressions, her eyes, how her character transforms into different looks and costumes and whatnot. And to me, she brought an extreme entertainment value to this whole thing that's could easily have fallen into the groove of a typical Tramp film where, all right, we've seen this before. I really like the light that she's shown on this thing.
I think in a lot of Chaplin films, or at least the ones that I've covered and observed, it feels like the women in them are central characters, but not usually given a lot to do. And they're not really supporting him per se, but more he's acting toward them, if that makes any sense. In this one, I felt for the first time that he really had kind of a supportive figure in her that was trying to aid what he was doing on screen. And it was somewhat refreshing in that capability, because they do so much together during the course of the film.
Yeah, absolutely. And she'd go on to be nominated for an Oscar in the late 40s. So she did end up getting a nod at the awards. So you could tell that she had the chops in her. So it's fun to see that in what is essentially a silent film.
But Dad, you had her as your secondary. Anything that you'd like to highlight?
Well, it's the same reason I had her for most charismatic. She held her own with Chaplin. It's the one time I've seen somebody else in a Chaplin film who I could honestly say had near top billing. I don't know if it was the relationship he had with her talent level, her ability. I mean, if you've read anything about her, I mean, she was quite, let's just put it this way. She married a very wealthy man when she was like 18, divorced him, used the settlement to move to Hollywood, immediately hooks up with Chaplin, who's one of the wealthier men in Hollywood. That lasts for a while. Then she marries an up-and-coming movie star in Burgess Meredith, and they're together for a while. She divorces him and marries a European count who they remained married until he died in the early 70s. And during the 60s and 70s, she's friends with Andy Warhol. She's friends with Truman Capote. She's a jet setter. So she had an interesting life, let's put it that way.
She feels kind of, at least the way that you've described it, kind of like a Forrest Gump character, where she's just intersecting all these random people that you would think don't necessarily have a lot of connective tissue, but she's somehow the glue between all of them.
Well, and I don't know if it's just chance or if it's by design. It just seems a little odd that she finds some of the wealthiest men in the world to marry or get involved with.
The film she was nominated for was a 1944 film, So Proudly We Hail. I don't know much about it beyond that. She was nominated for Best Supporting Actress.
Was it in the Best Picture race, or was it just kind of a lone nominee type of situation?
Nominated for 4 Oscars: screenplay, cinematography, special effects, and supporting actress. So just
who else
under
was
the
in
bar.
that? I want to say that Burgess Meredith was involved in either in the direction or as a co-star.
It's directed by a gentleman I'm not familiar with Mark Sandrich is his name. Other stars are Claudette Colbert, Veronica Lake. I don't see Burgess Meredith on here.
That's an interesting cast. 3 lead women like that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
All right. You don't definitely see that really happen with nominations anymore, where it's a supporting actress and then a bunch of technical awards like cinematography and I guess screenplay. But,
a group of nurses returning from the war in the Philippines recall their experiences in combat and in love.
Okay.
I'm sure that was not popular with the troops in 44.
Okay. Well, not everything could be 1942's just drub after drub of propagandist films.
Justice for Mrs. Miniver.
Well, it wasn't just Mrs. Miniver.
That was the least propaganda.
Well, no, it's not the least, but like 91st Parallel was just like, or Wake Island. Some of those were okay films, but it's just like overly hit you over the head with gotta support the war effort, gotta support the war effort. Spoken like at least 2 people that reviewed that for a particular show that shall remain nameless. Anyway, let's move to best scene then. I have 5 nominees here. I have Factory Line, I have Lunch Machine, I have Sniffing Powder, Back in the Factory, and Singing for Your Supper. I think these probably detail all the biggest moments for me that I could really recall throughout the film, but did you guys have any others to nominate?
Yeah, the department store roller skating.
Oh, sure. Yeah.
Return to the Factory is essentially him with the guy who gets stuck in the gears and does the lunch break.
Yes.
Yeah. So, I mean, I guess with the roller skating, you could just say the department store as a whole. As I do like that kind of scene where he reunites with his buddy from jail. It's like the rum gag with the rum spouting out at him. But yeah, the department store as a whole probably where I go.
Dad, any for you?
Nothing additional, no.
Okay, so out of these 6, then, Factory Line, Lunch Machine, Sniffing Powder, Department Store, Back in the Factory, and Singing for Your Supper, what do you guys have as your best scenes?
best scene for me was the return to the factory. The gag with the old man and him falling into the gears and the whistle coming out and him stopping for lunch. I mean, that's probably the one time I actually laughed during this thing. Maybe part of the problem I have with some of the Charlie Chaplin films is like, this is, for me, this type of comedy is like the lowest form of comedy, the slapstick Three Stooges, guy gets hit in the head, falls over comedy. I just that doesn't resonate with me this many years later. But I did laugh out loud when the whistle came and he stopped what he was doing and went and got his lunch pail. Also, going back to my set design, second performer there, that tactile imagery that's there, the tactile set, you feel like you could touch the gears and do very, very cool stuff. So I was most engaged during that scene as well.
If I remember right, the older guy's name was Conklin.
Could be,
I think. He and Chaplin were both friends from the days when they were both working for Mack Sennett.
For me, I guess, and it comes as an absolute shock to no one, but I tend to be with you that the slapstick doesn't really get to me all that much. It doesn't tickle me much. I respond much more to a lot more acerbic, sarcastic, witty humor, stuff that's more spoken and biting. But for me, the place where I usually laugh for this movie is probably very early on, whether it's the nut tightening or it's the lunch machine. And that's ultimately where I went with for my best scene. I just like the lunch machine because ultimately it feels like, and especially for somebody who's thinking about the financial concerns of a business at the moment, watching them try and yes, you're going to be more efficient. You're going to be able to work. Like, who is working while they have this thing basically clubbing them in the face repeatedly? I mean, yes, it eventually went to the notion of like a pie in the face, quite literally. But up until then, it's just kind of a goofy aspect. And I thought tying it in nicely with the societal piece of they will go to any extent, any length to try and save extra time, try and be more efficient, try and churn out just that little bit more, because that fraction of time that you may be eating could be costing them money. And yeah. I like the dehumanization of this just rotating thing trying to feed you while you're supposedly working on something while it's doing it. I don't know. It made me giggle.
My best scene is the factory line in the beginning. And it's not the slapstick that I found funny that I laughed at. It's the absurdity of some of the stuff that they were forcing him to do and requiring him to do. And it just made me laugh because you see the same stupidity going on today. I don't think it's lost one bit of relevance as far as just what some employers think they could obtain by just pushing or prodding or changing or whatever you want to say. The absurdity of that just resonated with me as it exists now.
As far as favorite scene for me, it's either one of those. It's the lunch machine or the factory line. I really enjoy the first third of this movie. And after that, there are pieces of this that I really enjoy. There's the roller skating in the department store. That's kind of a one-off, but that's kind of a contained sequence. I do enjoy at the end the song that he puts on just because of the nature of watching the Tramp for the first time kind of talk. But outside of that, there are pieces in here that still make sense, but I feel like as a whole, the factory portion in the beginning for me is probably my most memorable bit as well as my favorite bit of this movie.
My favorite is going to teeter between what I had as the best and what I picked as my indelible. So I guess I'll pick my favorite, what will be the indelible, and that's going to be the roller skating. It's really visually and aesthetically pleasing and at equal parts dreadful. Can't look away just imagining roller skating that close to the edge of a of a gap. Maybe that's my fear of heights kicking in. But it's pretty beautiful. It's a pretty beautiful thing. There's not much to it, like you said, as far as the scene goes. But it is what sticks with me the most, other than the gears and him Chaplin traveling through the gears in the beginning of the movie. That would be the other like indelible visual. I think that might be on the cover of the Criterion. Yeah, that department store skating scene is tops for me.
For me, the favorite scene is Singing for Your Supper. I guess I had always been kind of a fan watching some of the things Carl Reiner and Sid Caesar doing their gibberish conversations on Show of Shows, seeing some of those reruns and such. It just always, it to be able to say the gibberish in a way that makes some sense without it being, or with it being nonsensical at the same time. Instead of it just sounding, you have to learn lines of a non-English speaking or non-language. Otherwise, it just sounds bizarre instead of humorous. And so I just love that part.
Yeah, great scene. The ending is really well crafted. I mean, you could easily pick that as best scene. Just how, as far, especially based on what he's saying and everything in it.
So I had Factory Line as my most indelible moment. Just overall, that's the thing that sticks out. I think, Kieran, you already indicated yours was the department store.
The roller skating. Yeah, the roller skating on the edge with the blindfolded. That sticks with me. To me, that's, maybe it is Instagram. That's my scrolling brain kicking in. But to me, that's the image that leaves me with this movie, is him roller skating near the edge there.
And Dad?
I had Factory Line because that's the part of the thing that I always will remember, him being in the machine.
Fair enough. All right, so that looks like a great spot for our second break. We'll be right back. Before we jump back into the episode, and before we get to the Stanley Rubric in a minute, if you're ever curious about our Master Greatest Movies of All Time list that has every graded movie we've ever discussed on the show, there's a link in the episode description of every episode of this show, or you can go to RonnieDuncanStudios.com and find it as the top entry on the Greatest Movie of All Time podcast show page. That has the grades we've done so far for all 270 movies we've graded, and we continue to add more each week. Make sure to check that out as we go and follow along. Dad, do we have anyone to remember this week?
Yes. Bud Cort, 77, American actor. Harold and Maude, Brewster McCloud. The Life Aquatic with Steve Zissou. Blake Garrett, 33, American actor. How to Eat Fried Worms. Shelley Dusay, 90, American actor. Men of a Certain Age. Here Comes the Boom. It's Always Sunny in Philadelphia. James Vanderbeek, 48, American actor. Dawson's Creek, Varsity Blues, The Rules of Attraction. And Robert Duvall, 95, American actor. The Godfather Part 2, Apocalypse Now, The Conversation, Network, The Natural, 7-time Oscar nominee, won the Oscar for Best Actor in 1984 for Tender Mercies.
So obviously, I think all of us have a relationship with Robert Duvall, and we'll get to that here in a second. Dad, have you seen Harold and Maude at all yet?
I have not, but I was familiar with Bud Cort because he did a lot of stuff in the early 70s, did a lot of stuff in TV as well. So I was familiar with him, but I have not seen Harold and Maude.
Okay. It's been on my short watch list for a while because that made the AFI 10 top 10 list for, I think, comedy. And I just haven't bothered to get around to it, but it's been on that watch list for quite some time. I thought the premise of it seemed a little odd, but then again, it is a Hal Ashby movie, so who knows? But from that standpoint, I am not a big. I mean, I obviously had my run-in and my very famous story that I've told multiple times on It's Always Sunny in Philadelphia. But Kieran, did you happen to watch that show?
Well, absolutely. Huge Always Sunny guy. And Shelley Desai plays the Frank and Charlie. Frank is Danny DeVito, Charlie Day. Their creepy landlord who they live in this like really rundown apartment that like doesn't even have a bathroom in it. And he's the landlord. And Frank is Danny DeVito's character is a very wealthy man who decides he wants to live in peril and poverty. And he's constantly haggling with him about like paying the rent. He's like, I'm not paying the rent till you fix the crack on the wall. And it's this great dynamic between the two. It's a really distinct looking character actor who is in the earlier half of Always Sunny. He's a reoccurring character, not a super frequent reoccurring character, but well played, well portrayed, and great show. And he left a nice little mark on it.
And obviously, I think there has been quite a lot of online commentary regarding James Van Der Beek, not only for the circumstances of his death and how it's left his family and all the other stories that were surrounding him, obviously going back a few months, that people were lamenting the fact that he had to sell a lot of his own memorabilia and other things to fund his cancer treatments at the time. But now, of course, this GoFundMe page or whatever to pay for his leftover medical care, the estate that his friends in the industry helped support his family with by getting him shortly before he passed away. But as far as his acting career, I never watched Dawson's Creek. I think it was a little bit ahead of my time. Like, I think it was for the group that was just ahead of me. And
Katie Holmes.
Correct.
Yeah.
Among other people.
Michelle Williams, too, Joshua Jackson. Those are the four.
Yeah. And I also did not watch Varsity Blues. My small run-in with James Van Der Beek was as a bit character on How I Met Your Mother when he did like 2 or 3 episodes, I think, during the course of that 9 or 10 season run as a former paramour of the Robin character. But I knew who he was. I mean, it wasn't that he was like a strange person. He obviously had this rather handsome and hunk persona within popular culture. So he'd been out there. I just wasn't as familiar with his work per se. But obviously a very large name to lose this weekend. In the circumstances, I think it's magnified his ultimate death.
Huge Packer fan.
Yes, I did see that.
Became a very close friend of Brett Favre's because he grew up worshiping Favre as a quarterback.
And he did tell the story, I think, on Rich Eisen, that was being passed around recently, that he wears the number 4 as a result of being a huge Packer fan and a Brett Favre fan, because that was one of the stipulations to doing Varsity Blues, was he got to wear Brett Favre's number in the movie. Now, let's move quickly here.
Just want to shout out Rules of Attraction too. Roger Avery's Rules of Attraction. He's the lead in that, and just because it's the movie that allows him to show his acting chops the best, and I think he's pretty great in that movie. It's by the same the source material is by the same author as American Psycho. Pretty good fun little film.
Let me just, as a little political commentary before we move on to the big name. It's a sad commentary in this country when individuals have to bankrupt themselves to enforce or to afford basic life-saving or potentially life-saving care. And when somebody who's had the ability to make money still ends up in this situation, it's an indictment against the whole country that we continue to allow this to happen.
Not to mention, too, I mean, how many people got rich off of Dawson's Creek? No one involved could chip in and help him out. You know, there's plenty of people within the industry who I'm sure worked with him and were around him. I mean, someone can put the care in there. I mean,
It's certainly unfortunate on multiple levels, and I think that the commentary has reflected part of a larger conversation regarding that as well. I'd like to hope that that is not his lasting memory, is as this footnote to a larger socioeconomic conversation, but it does obviously hold true with where we're at. And I think I obviously agree with your sentiments, Dad, wholeheartedly as to the medical reform needed in this country. But for him on specifically, I would just, he obviously was a well-liked, well-regarded person within the industry. And, 48 is a lot younger than I think most people would have predicted.
I will say that I've seen articles, and I can't remember if it was in the Times or the Wall Street Journal, where they said that based upon this situation, they're starting to look at earlier testing for colorectal cancer because it's becoming more prevalent with people in their 40s and even in their late 30s.
In their late 20s. The incidence rate, especially since around the time of COVID, of my generation specifically and their development of it, and they can't explain why the incidences are occurring at a higher rate, but when I went through my medical situation a few years back, even I had developed some polyps that they removed during that time. It's, and I was in the early 30s at that point in time, and, I'm not the most healthy individual, but still, that's your early 30s. That's
right.
A lot prior to when people would normally think to get themselves checked or go through these, especially when it's been usually the prerequisite, hit 50, then start scanning for a lot of this stuff. And he hadn't even achieved that. But let's move to Robert Duvall here. Obviously a seminal name in the history of acting, a seminal actor figure during the course of the 1970s, was instrumental as a character within possibly two of the greatest films of all time ever made. The Godfather itself was our number one on the Cinema Legacy poll list. The Godfather Part 2 was in our top 15. Apocalypse Now, while it didn't make the overall list, it's a highly well-regarded film. The Conversation as well. Network was, I think, in the top 30. So he is a part of a larger or broader conversation of that era of film that we've been talking about as we've slowly lost people like Diane Keaton and Robert Redford and Donald Sutherland earlier this year, as we've continued to lose some of these larger names just continuously over time.
Gene Hackman.
Yeah, Gene.
That we knew this was coming, but every time it does, we get a bittersweet moment. We get the ability to celebrate them like we do here for literally helping build where film is at today and all the things that we celebrate about it from this era of film that we can't get enough of. But at the same time that they're gone and no longer able to contribute or no longer able to be celebrated in the moment in the way that we would have liked. And so, like I said earlier in the show, that In Memoriam this year is going to be incredibly difficult. It's just another large name added to what is going to be seemingly increasingly a lot of large names from this era that are going to be passing away that we're not going to have a chance to commiserate with about all of their accomplishments and all the things that they contributed or celebrate them in the way we wish.
Yeah. It's hard to add on to any of that. Just a word on Robert Duvall, who's obviously an incredible master of his craft and one of the seminal actors of like not our time, not the time before us. It just of cinema time. He is in the 125 years of cinema. He's a big name. He's a top dog. This is going to be a weird movie to drop here, but last week, me and my wife, Tiffany, watched Kicking and Screaming, the soccer movie with Will Ferrell, a comedy. And Robert Duvall plays Will Ferrell's father in it. It's a kids sports movie. It's fun. It's a romp. I think it's on Netflix. So we wanted something light. We put it on. She had never seen it. I hadn't seen it in however many years since it came out. In a movie like that, where it's just so light and so easy, his presence and his command is just so wonderful. And it's very cool to see an actor like an Academy Award-winning actor like that play a role in that, where he's like quibbling with Mike Ditka in it. They're like neighbors in it and going back and forth. And he passes away like the next week. It was one of those like, I just like relived this section of him. So it hurt a little extra just knowing that I kind of had it there. The other thing I just want to shout out to is this, because this is making its rounds on social media. There is a round table from 2010, where he was nominated, I believe, for Best Actor, or was in the running there. And they have all the actors that were up that year. So you have Jesse Eisenberg, Ryan Gosling, Ruffalo, amongst others there. And there's a round table. And there's the short one of just Duvall speaking, but I implore you to check it out and see like the full length one, because it starts with Jesse Eisenberg talking about obviously his role in the Social Network with David Fincher, and talking about how many takes he did. And you could tell Duvall, who's obviously the veteran, the grandpa in the room, who's just probably trailing off through most of this. He's just sitting there, and Eisenberg brings up, we did 80 takes of the scene. And you could see like Duvall gets startled, and then the host is like, "Oh, go back for it." And then he goes, "Oh, hold on. Did you say 80 takes? Did you 80 takes?" Because I don't mean to be disrespectful, but that is ridiculous. And then he just goes off on Kubrick. He goes, Stanley Kubrick. He's like, that's some of the worst acting performances I've ever seen. And you see like Gosling and Ruffalo giggling in the background, like literally like, yes, we got old man yelling at clouds in the best kind of way right here. And it's really just a wonderful, if you see the full thing in context, I just love that. The best part of it is just him like jolting. He's like, 80 takes. He's like, all right, now I'm going to contribute to this. Like my agent told me I had to come to this stupid thing, but now I'm going off. And it's great. And this went viral before he passed away, and then has now redone the circle. So it's awesome stuff.
I saw that, and you can look at Gosling going, I'm glad somebody else has the balls to take on Kubrick.
It's amazing. And he's right into his like his Godfather character, his Dave Fagan character, where he says, oh, hold on a second here. It's very fun, very fun. So we'll miss him. What a career.
Yeah.
Well, and a long, very productive life. 95. I mean, even some of the stuff he did, the Betsy, I remember seeing that with Olivier and Tommy Lee Jones back in the late 70s. It's where I really started paying attention to him as an actor, because he was so good, even in that.
And he might be one of the best on-screen lawyers of all time, even though he's never really in a courtroom.
Very few really are.
I guess that's a hearing. That hearing isn't technically a courtroom.
Yeah, I suppose. To Dad's point, yeah, there are a lot of lawyers who never see the inside of a courtroom. So we remember these here fondly for their contributions to the arts, with a moment of silence in their honor. Thank you. All right, let's make the awkward transition to best funniest lines. I have the Gaiman. What's the use of trying? A factory worker. Buck up. Never say die. We'll get along.
A factory worker to a gammon. Can you imagine us in a little home like that? A factory worker. I'll do it. I'll get a home, even if I have to work for it.
Okay.
For the first time ever, I have been silenced. I am out.
Okay. I wondered if that might be the case.
I take pride in being the last one standing in these categories. Tonight, I take the sword. I take the sword and lay down here.
Fair enough. Fair enough. The mechanical salesman. The Billows feeding machine will eliminate the lunch hour, increase your production, and decrease your overhead. Allow us to point out some of the features of this wonderful machine. Its beautiful, aerodynamic, streamlined body, its smoothness of action, made silent by our electroporous metal ball bearings. Let us acquaint you with our automaton soup plate. Its compressed air blower, no breath necessary, no energy required to cool the soup. Notice the revolving plate with the automatic food pusher. Observe our counter shaft double knee action corn feeder with the synchro mesh transmission, which enables you to shift from high to low gear by the mere tip of the tongue. Then there is the hydro-compressed, sterilized mouth wiper. Its factors of control ensure against spots on the shirt front. These are but a few of the delightful features of the Billows feeding machine.
Yeah.
Did I do enough infomercial voice there?
That was great. I mean, you have another career. I don't know that they still make infomercials, but
I'm out.
I mean, the one, what is it, the ShamWow guy is running for Congress?
Really?
No
yes,
comment.
really.
Yeah. He's looking worse for wear these days.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, he wasn't looking great at that time. He already looked like he was blitzed out on heroin. Anyway.
Do I dare ask which party?
No, you know exactly which party.
Okay.
President of the Electro Steel Corporation, from the telescreen in the restroom to the factory worker. Hey, quit stalling. Get back to work. Go on. Can't even have a smoke in the bathroom.
It reminded me of
You?
White from
White.
Dodgeball.
Oh, White Goodman?
White Goodman. So, hey, way
You
to
call
go,
that
Jason.
Call that a pull-up? There's a good energy in the gym.
Quit slacking, Trevor.
Yeah, there it is.
Okay. Opening title card. Modern Times, a story of industry, of individual enterprise, humanity crusading in the pursuit of happiness. The most detrimental phrase in American history. And finally, Big Bill. We ain't burglars. We're hungry. So, all right, that's what I got. I'm out.
Well done. You reign supreme today, Tom.
Oh, shucks.
Certain element of Les Mis in this movie.
I suppose, but a lot less singing.
I mean, the gamine steals a loaf of bread.
Yeah, but also, again, if we had asked Kieran to do a musical on top of Terror in Tiny Town. All right, anyway.
I thought we were done with that. It said there was no need for it to be musical, but I think that's what I like the most about it, by the way. Just real talk.
Let's move to the Stanley rubric. Legacy is up first. This is a measure of the legacy of the film approximately 5 years after it came out, so roughly 1941 to today. What is the legacy of this film as shared between two equal yet separate groups? The industry and the audience, 5 and 5 points apiece between those two groups for a total of 10. Dad, would you like to go first or second here?
Oh, I'll start us out. The industry has a tendency to look fondly. I mean, it's on a lot of the big lists. It's, highly regarded.
Can I just supplement this here? Does anyone
Yeah.
have a disagreement that it's a 5 on the industry?
I mean, listen, I mean, you know how I go, like something that's going to be 33 on the AFI 100 is, that's pretty defined ground. So
let's skip
contestation.
to 5. Yeah, let's skip to the part that actually we're going to converse over here.
Yeah.
Okay. This is a film that you have to be a pretty big cinephile to want to see and appreciate. There's not going to be a ton of people who are going to watch it. I mean, it's black and white. It's mainly silent. And anytime you mention Charlie Chaplin to a lot of people, they're going to go, The best I could do is a 3. And that's where I am. So I'm at an 8 overall.
So going back to my actual rubric scoring on the audience perspective for Legacy, a 2 is if only about half of the film nerd community has seen it. 3 is if most of the film nerd community has seen it. I think it's somewhere I mean, I'm not sure how to judge it completely. Some people might be weird completionists like Kieran and I, because it's on a list somewhere. We have to see it.
Why the adjective?
Well,
Why the
I mean,
weird? I get it.
fair enough. But I just don't know how, like, if I asked everybody in our Discord if they've seen it, I think we'd probably get about 60 or 70%, because it does have a feeling of more accessibility than some other Chaplin films. And we have some like deep cine nerds in our community who have probably seen a lot of stuff that the average public person has not. I will agree currently with the 3, but I'm waffling a little bit. So I will also share your 8 for the time being.
I find a 3 to be far too generous. And I'll throw this out too, is when Chaplin's name comes up, I find that the people in the community are going to wax poetic about City Lights first. Now, this is not a City Lights podcast, but if we're going to like make this category or any of these categories about Chaplin, we do have to talk about his like highest stock within this world. Now, that's if we're talking like people really plugged into film. You know, my wife Tiffany asked me about like what are you covering tonight? And I was like a little embarrassed to even say. And when I did, I got laughed at.
Well, she's also in her 20s. Is she
yeah,
not?
we're sure, but that's a whole decade of people. That's a whole decade of people. I am gonna have to go 1.5 with this, because it's just it definitely it can't be a 1, because 1 is gonna be, you know. Do you guys do zeros? I should know this, but you do. Okay, I've never given a zero. I don't know
if you've found what. I think I've gone a half a point on a category before, but I don't know if I've ever gone full 0. Yeah, I'd have to look, but yeah.
And I'll maybe go the 1.5, which I agree is harsh, but I think that this is the category to be harsh on, because I'm going to be generous in some of the later categories. This is not really relevant today. It's really not. I mean, if I think City Lights takes the flowers for Chaplin, and Chaplin himself is a bit of a character, but while I think this is his best film, I don't know that it's to today's audience that this is relevant at all. I guess a little kudos for it being on Prime and easily accessible.
When you say relevant, are you just meaning remembered or actually relevant? Because I think that's going to be a conversation we'll have right around classicness.
I would marry relevant with remembered in context of this conversation for this specific category, just because we're talking about like the audience today. Even in the cinema online community, I don't think this is the first place people will go when they go to Chaplin, and it's limited to even go to Chaplin is my point. And we talked about the memeability of the roller skating scene and this and that, and there's a world where I could be talked up, but based on the fact that I think you guys are being a bit generous with the 3, I'm going to hold back bumping to the 2 and stay at the 1.5.
So that would average out to a 7.5, and we'll just keep it there for what it's worth. But in analyzing the Cinema Legacy poll, there were only 2 silent films that made it in my recollection.
Well, that's a good way to look at it. Yeah.
Sherlock Jr., Buster Keaton, and Nosferatu.
So Chaplin didn't make it at all.
Correct. And my guess is that he did get some votes, but I would have to look to see how far down, because I don't remember any of his films being like in the first set of cuts or in like that first grouping of cuts.
And I bet you if he got votes, it was City Lights. That's damning. I didn't even know that. I assumed that he had been on there somewhere. Did Adam St. John submit a list?
He did, yes.
He might have considered City Lights. He's a big City Lights guy. But that's damning that he's not on there at all. That's tough.
All right. Because I can edit this out later, I'm just going to take a look here. Oh, I take that back. There is a Chaplin film on the list.
Is it Modern Times?
It is.
Wow,
Okay.
little comeuppance.
Yeah, Modern Times comes in at 75 on the list. So I just
Wait, was there?
yeah.
So, yeah.
I think it's the only Chaplin film, and I think it's the highest ranking silent film on the list.
Yeah.
Oh no, I'm sorry. Just ahead of it, the Sunrise, A Song of Two Humans is the
Yeah.
top silent film getter. So
Okay.
74. But even so, that's like
Sunrise, Song to Humans was 74 in the whole list. And
Yep.
what was like Lawrence Arabia, like 60? Ugh, God.
Lawrence, I think, was 33.
Right, my local senator.
Hey, you've got some time to advocate for any number of things before we revisit
I'm just
it.
kidding. I'm just kidding.
Oh,
I'm just kidding.
I was surprised by it, but yeah.
All right, so wow. All right, so I might have shot that short a little bit, but I'm going to stick with my guns a little bit,
And like I said, it's still a 7.5 average between the three of us.
which is a good number.
Yeah. I like that kind of semi-whole number there. Impact and significance, this is basically the same measurement as Legacy, except within the initial 5 years after the film came out, 1936 to 1941. What is roughly the impact and significance among the same two groups? 5 and 5 points apiece for a total of 10. I have this, given how much it made, that it's truly the end of the silent era, that Chaplin is kind of breaking the fourth wall by doing several of these. The Tramp is finally speaking, even though it's kind of a roundabout way. He's engaging with sound effects and sound noises. There is some spoken dialogue in the film, even though it's more of like sound effect type of things. He's got this socioeconomic political commentary going on. There's some negative impact and significance in the fact that it's banned in some other countries, although being banned in Nazi Germany is actually probably a thing to add points to for your movie.
Yeah.
Just saying.
Yeah.
So I have a 4.5 there because the only thing holding it back from a full 5 is that it has no awards attention, which in 1936, it's weird that it's hard to say what was or was not in that conversation, but being a top 3 grosser at that time and not getting a single award nomination seems weird. Even in the, I don't know.
Well,
I'm not sure how to explain
I don't
all
think
of it.
I don't think it's that weird, and that's going to go into mine. Is just that in the industry, there was a vibe that this guy keeps beating the dead horse, and we're moving in a certain direction, and Charlie Chaplin is this kind of like slow dying, crawling through the desert character here. Why are we still moving silent films? This and that. Now, the movie artistically addresses the state and the times that Chaplin was in, which is a nod to the movie. But the industry frowned upon this in my look. And that's why it does not get any of the awards and any of the love there.
Except that it's critically acclaimed across the board. Like, there were not really many negative critical comments about the film. Now, if you want to say that because it's not a serious subject matter like The Great Ziegfeld, and I think that's a great film in its own right, again, a defender of a much maligned film. But
the critics of the time, which is a much smaller room than what we experience today, where everyone with a laptop and a microphone is a critic, myself guilty as well. But the industry, like the people making movies laughed at this. From just reading the tea leaves, it seems to be that it wasn't getting Oscar nomination. Now, I think that a few years later with The Great Dictator, they kind of apologized and brought him back in the room. So I don't know.
But my 4.5 will stand.
No, I'm not arguing out of it. I'm just prepping my number.
Let me point out, okay, at this time, the nominations were controlled by the studios.
Correct.
Chaplin was not in the studios.
But United Artists still got nominations.
I know, but it did not surprise me the fact that he got ostracized at that point in time by the other studios.
I'm just saying I needed the ability to take that half step down, and based on what we've previously said, that awards attention has to be present for it to receive a full 5, even if it's just like a bunch of nominations. I think the rest of things are there because I think he's still somewhat of an industry tastemaker, again, critically celebrated from everything that I could see. And he got $1.5 million to make this movie and go out there and produce it. And then to the second half of the category, it still was a top 3 grosser. It's a top 15 grosser of the decade. Like, the audience was there for this film, even though it was using a somewhat dead technology. So I have a 4.5 there. I have a 9.
I think this is the equivalent of a sequel. Like, it was treated in the way that a sequel would be treated today. It's property. It's a character that we know coming in. It's a genre that we know coming in. That's why it got the money. That's why it made the money. And I think the nose stuck up a bit. It's like, oh, here's Charlie Chaplin running back his gimmick. So it's like a 1936 version of what we know as IP or a sequel today. That's just how I look at it from industry standards. That's why I'm going to give it a little bit of a lower number from an industry standpoint. I'm going to give it a 2.5.
Why don't you just continue and finish off?
From an audience, it was clearly, just like we said, well received. I mean, a high grosser, embraced, the character was embraced and all that. So I have a 4.5 for the audience. So that's a total of a 7, if my math is correct, which is often not.
And I'm going to make this real easy for your math, Tom.
Because you come out to an 8.
My public,
there you go.
Public is at
2.5.
Is at a 4.5. And for the industry, the problem that a lot of this had was the industry perceived this as the Bee Gees playing in the mid 1990s. Yes. And they're going, nobody wants to listen to disco at this point in time, except that people like listening to disco once in a while yet because of the nostalgia of it. And the public loved this. So I'm at a 3.5. So I'm at an 8.
I went to a showing of Cry Macho, Clint Eastwood's Cry Macho.
Of course you did.
At noon on a Wednesday. And it was a full theater. And I said, wow, I actually think I'm the only living member of the people who saw the movie that day. That's how elderly the theater was.
Yeah, but you single-handedly brought the average age down
to about age 70. But it was, there are people who long for the earlier time, and that was going on there for that. But there is some brilliance to this movie to playing off of the situation he was in. That's what makes the film great.
So ultimately, as you've guessed, our impact and significance average is an 8 between the three of us. Let's move to novelty. Novelty is a measure of the originality of anything involved with the movie and the execution. 5 and 5 points apiece between those two halves for a total of 10 for this entire category. Let's let our 18-time guest lead us off here.
Yes, its execution is, I mean, it's pretty wonderful. We're talking about using what's becoming an archaic form of filmmaking, and it's turning it on its head. There's even a little bit of future technology in there. We have the screen of the guy talking to the workers. So the execution here, and I'd love to dock it a 0.5 just because of my disdain for slapstick comedy, but I can't because I think he applies it pretty well with the technology. So it is going to be a 5 for that. It's pretty well. Originality is going to be a slight hit here with that, just because we are playing off of a bit of an old character, old trope. Like we said earlier on, it's not necessarily even the Tramp, but we're using the idea of the Tramp, so we're a little half pregnant with all that. So originality, I'm gonna throw it at a 3. So it's gonna be an 8 for me.
I think I'm on a very similar wavelength as you. I will ultimately end up pretty close, but slightly above. On an originality front, he is taking the same character, but he's interweaving a lot of the new modern things that people are expecting. Again, there is a little bit of spoken dialogue in this. The sound effects are there. I think that there is some stuff even beyond that. So the overtly political, the socioeconomic commentary in this, I find this to be a little bit more original and novel per se than some of his other films, which is why I think this is ultimately his best film. And so I have a 4 there. I can't go like a full 5. This isn't like reinventing. It doesn't have that unicorn factor. But among his movies, I think this one clearly separates itself out compared to a lot of the other Tramp movies. On an execution level, the only thing I'm going to really ding it for is just there are some moments in here that I find to be a little bit slow. Especially towards the back half of the movie, there are moments where it just kind of, the flow doesn't quite work for me as well, but I still think it is a highly executed movie. The production design, the stunt work, again, we've talked about most of this stuff already, so I have a 4.5 there, and I'm going to have an 8.5.
I agree on the execution is 4.5. There's a couple of problems. It does drag just a bit. I don't know if it really understands exactly where it could have allowed some more sound without compromising the Tramp character. So not a huge hit, but between the two, I'm at a 4.5. But originality, oh my God. I can't think of a film that pre-existed this, that had the same socioeconomic spin, that was so widely classical as far as supporting of the workers. Maybe we got into the Depression because we allowed capitalism to run amok. This is a really, really cutting edge film as far as what it was saying. I can't think of another film that comes anywhere close. So I'm going with originality of a 5.
To be fair, your library of knowledge from this era of time is much more limited in scope to be able to think of something that predates something that would be more politically overt. But fair enough.
Metropolis?
Yeah.
Yeah, that would be the only thing, but that's only a couple of years preceding. Yeah, Long might be one of the few characters who would have that level of commentary. I mean,
and if I take that into account, maybe it would go to a 4.5 for a 9. I guess I can go there.
Metropolis
Because
is a decade. Metropolis is a decade before.
Is it? I thought
26, it was 27.
So I will go down to a 4.5. So I'm at a 9.
Was there an Office poll on this one?
I told you if you didn't do it this week, he was going to be mad.
I'm a loyal fan of Gmode here, guys, and I'm a big supporter of the Office poll. So when every time you mock at it,
poll here, Dad?
I'm listening at home like, where was the Office poll?
No one had ever heard of the film. No one had ever seen the film. We did get about half of them who understood who Charlie Chaplin was.
No. That was almost universal. Everybody knew the name Charlie Chaplin.
And the character itself, yeah, about the same. That's about it. So
it's synonymous. Like, if you know Chaplin, you kind of know the Tramp. Like,
yeah.
I don't even know if we needed to ask that offshoot per se, but yeah, okay.
Just know when you don't do the Office poll segment at home, I'm listening, shaking my fist in the air at Home Depot.
Just don't knock over any 2x4s. All right, let's move to classicness. This is a category that lives entirely in the gray. We start at a baseline that is slightly higher than the median because it is easier to take points off for something aging poorly than it is for us to add points for it aging well. And so as such, we turn this over to our senior nuance correspondent, Dana.
Let me start by putting out, as I commented earlier, Goddard almost is equal to Chaplin in this film as far as I'm concerned. That was not a big thing until, I mean, you can look at Hepburn.
Frequent guest and 5-time club member Sarah Shea would argue with you profusely that pre-code women were much more adventurous and supported and leading in a lot more films, which
but it's
would
still
be a couple of
code.
years prior to this.
This isn't
it's still
pre-code.
code.
No, this is post-code, but I mean, we're not.
This is code. This is code.
Yeah.
So I'm giving that a half point up from our baseline of 6. Okay. The fact that he just by happenstance gets falsely accused of leading a red protest and becoming a communist revolt foreshadows the McCarthy era, where people just fall into and all of a sudden their whole lives are just turned. That's ahead of its time. It's clear indictment of the industrial age and of capitalism with its lack of concern for the worker itself is ahead of its time. So I'm giving the 3 of those combined 2 points. Okay. Now, if you were to take and put this film together and do it with actual dialogue and did this as a satire, I mean, this would be right on. This is part of the whole problem today that a lot of people have with the whole concept of work, that, it's a methodical process that really is dehumanizing.
It definitely has aspects of Office Space in here, yes.
Yeah. And so to the fact that a film that's 90 years old could have poignancy yet today, especially in a time where so many people are complaining about the fact that they feel out of touch, that they feel unappreciated, that they feel that they're just a cog in a machine and they have no real impact in society and such. Wow. I can't think of anything that would be more classic than that. So I'm giving it 2 points on that. I'm at a 9.
So see, I thought for sure you were going to end that off at being at a full 10 here.
No, excuse me.
It's not a 10.
Let me see. I had 1, 2, 3. Yeah. I'm pretty much close to being a 10.
Well, are you a 9 or are you a 10?
I'm going to go with a 9.5.
Okay.
I'm pretty damn close. If somebody give me a nudge, I'd probably be at a 10.
Well, I was a little harsher on this than you, so I don't think that's going to go. And Kieran's already saying that he has no business putting it anywhere near a 10. But
It's not a 10.
All right. So just a few things to also consider in this calculation of things. I do think it was +1 for ahead of its time on industrial issues, +1 for the social commentary. Much like yourself, I think those are important to this overall. I do give it a half point down for still engaging in silent film archetype and tropes. -1, and this is one you didn't mention, the outdated legal system. I mean, it's a little weird and a little jarring based on our understanding of the legal system now post Law and Order, that there's just like all these weird machinations that don't vibe well with a modern audience. But I also give it a +2 for timelessness. I ended it at an 8.5.
Okay. The pros and cons tug of war here. I'll start with the pros, and you guys have outlined a bunch of them. I'll add this one on top. There is a timelessness to the struggle with technology in the workforce, and we're seeing it today with AI, and we saw it back then. This is 36, so depression. This is like New Deal, beginning a New Deal era. So we're starting to head toward, I think, 40. We're getting away from the depression. So there is a timelessness of the workforce and technology in the ever-growing times. The big hit I'm throwing at this one for classicness is the meta silent era nature of this, which nobody gives a shit about today. I mean, let's be completely honest. Like, yes, like I do, because I, have a million VHS tapes behind me, but
I'm a man outside of time. Yeah. Okay.
I'm a man alone here. if you showed this to someone, even a random film lover today, they would just look at this as a silent film. They wouldn't look at it as like a silent film that was criticized by still being silent in an era where we're moving away from talk. It's very in the now. So just when this specific category is about like he made this film as a commentary on how the industry was moving related to talkies and sound, and that's very dated. It's very dated. You talked about some of the silent movie tropes and this and that and all that, but I do like the overrunning theme on the front end of this, not the subtext, but the foreground text, and that stuff ironically holds up better than what he was trying to do with the subtext. So you guys use your baseline as a 6. I kind of, with this one, I'm more of a G-Mote traditionalist, so I use it more as a 7. I'll give it a little extra bump up. I'll go with a 7.5.
That is an 8.5 average between the three of us, so an 8.5 for the last 2 categories here. And finally, we move to rewatchability. Insert your own subjective test here. We usually start with our guest on this category.
Tricky, super, like of his films, this is the most rewatchable from the ones that I've seen. The runtime is pretty smooth. The medium is not. You know, I like to be able to take my eyes off the screen from time to time. That's a fault in myself. That's not a fault in the film. I don't know the next time that I'll throw this one on, and it's a hard recommend to someone else. That's the trickiest part. Like I love rewatching movies through other people. You know, so like, hey, have you seen this? And then like, even if I'll recommend them, I'm not watching with them, I'll like watch along saying like, oh, that person. I can't do that with this one. I'm going to be a little hard on this one. This might be one of my lower rewatchability scores from the ones I've done, but I'm going to go with a 5.
Well, as the objective or the person trying to achieve or promote objectivity among the general audience, I was also at a 5 here.
Well, I actually would like to watch it again, not too far into the future. And it's something that I would try to encourage other people to watch.
If there is one Chaplin film, I agree with you, Kieran, that this is the one I would suggest to people.
Yeah. I'm at a 7. I'm actually going to encourage people to watch this film because I do think that the humor, if you point out to people the absurdity of what's going on around it and some of the scenes, you know, the whole concept of trying to feed people while they're continuing to work. I don't know how that's going to work, but okay. The absurdity of it in and of itself deserves, you know, a chuckle or two. So I'm at a 7.
See, I don't think the parts that you highlighted would need additional context. And yes, it has aided my enjoyment of the film to be able to discuss this in a larger historical context with all the political and sociological machinations and thematic elements here. And it's not necessarily something that I deeply thought about when I watched it for the first time, and now this is the second time for me. But I do think that aids to the film, and it isn't something that I think people need to have to watch this, but it's his most accessible because it's somehow combining the elements of the silent film, but also with at least some familiarity with an era of film that people understand and enjoy. Like, combining those sound effects to me is why this makes a lot bigger difference than some of the other ones where you're really having to rely. It's kind of like relying without a laugh track when you're watching one of those old classic sitcom types.
To me, the period from about 1920 to about 1960, that 40 years, Henry Luce, publisher of Time, called it the American Century. And to me, this, more than anything, dictates what America is today, more than any other time in our history, both culturally, economically, and politically.
All right, so that ultimately is a 5.67 average between the three of us. For audience score on this one, we had a 90% for Google users and a 95% for Rotten Tomato users. for a 9.25. So to repeat the categories, we had a 7.5 for legacy, an 8 for impact and significance, an 8.5 for novelty, and an 8.5 for classicness, a 5.67 for rewatchability, and a 9.25 for audience score, giving us a final total of 47.42, and currently placing it on our list at number 119 in between Duck Soup and La Dolce Vita.
Feels appropriate.
Yeah, that's one below La Dolce Vita is A Night at the Opera.
Feels appropriate. I mean, that tracks. You guys have got it going on here.
Well, we bring in the best to try and cement these on the list. But yeah. So with that, as always, if you have any commentary for us, if you have any negative commentary or further Patton Oswalt comments, you can send those to @GMote Podcast, wherever you get your social media content, or you can find us at greatestaltimemoviepodcast@gmail.com or on our website, RonnieDuncanStudios.com/GMote Podcast. Remaining questions for this one. Why does the tramp end up in jail so often? Let's turn to our legal correspondent for his apparently never going to happen TikTok series, Dana.
You just keep going on and on about how it's never going to happen. It will happen. It's just a matter of how I can reorganize my schedule. As far as why does he apparently want to be in jail so often, my guess is he wants to be the subject of a country song.
So he enjoys cold beer, fried chicken,
driving his truck. Yep.
Yeah. It's
I got drunk the day my mama got out of prison.
Yeah. It's just
buzzwords. Went to pick her up in the rain.
Oh, wow. You are off pitch here. So
yeah, I know. Well, anyway. So I don't know. Maybe Chaplin just had some fascination with jail. I don't know.
There's a possibility, and you had already kind of alluded to this during the City Lights episode, that when we are dealing with the tramp character in the 30s, that this is kind of how the legal system worked. They just threw a lot of people in jail indiscriminately for short periods of time.
Yeah.
You know, there wasn't much to fall back on as far as like the necessity of having a lawyer, of representing you, of going through an actual hearing setting and a plea hearing, and et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. So
you didn't have a right to an attorney until 64 or 60. And 64 was Gideon. You didn't have a right to remain silent until Miranda 65. So, you know.
Yeah, and all things passed during the liberal era of the court.
Yeah, well, I know.
Imagine that. But anyway, we digress. All right, number 2. Would hitting a cop in the back of the head with a brick be only a week in jail?
Oh, don't make me go into the politics of this. Come on. I mean, I made a joke for years that women, you can't live with them, you can't kill them. And then my caveat has always been, unless you can find 12 married men for the jury. In this particular case, I don't know, because my guess is yes, if you can find 12 black jurors who have all been harassed by police officers.
Well, I was going to say, you are more likely to get shot than you are to end up in jail for a week.
Again, yeah.
Okay, we'll move to the third question. Have you ever heard of a governor pardoning someone for stopping a prison break?
Well, I don't know. I've heard of a president pardoning people for donating to a fucking
Bitcoin thing that he's got
or
going.
Dance hall or you know.
Yeah.
So no, but whatever.
Okay. Other remaining questions for either of you that are not so politically charged or potentially dangerous?
I mean, I got a million questions about that self-feeding device, if I can offer those. Starting with the first one, when the corn cob like malfunctions and there's sparks flying over there. Why would anyone allow themselves to be subjected to anything further than that? And why would they even continue? Like this is literally like sparks flying, the things like malfunctioning. We're gonna let like 3 other courses of food malfunction all over this poor soul. I guess he didn't have a choice, but that's a little tough.
Well, he was strapped in, was he not?
Yeah, but how about like, all right, this isn't working. Like I almost got electrocuted off of this. Like we're gonna move to soup.
And I want my job, so.
Yeah.
Well, that's okay. True.
Also, the sponge, what's the concept behind the sponge? Like, how is it not going to get gross? Like, what, like, it just keeps patting you in the face after you have all this food all over your face? Like, it's just going to keep smashing the food back into your face.
Well, and it's like a harder object. So if it's just going back and forth, it's not actually wiping, it's smearing.
Well, and it's not even. You know what it is? Neither of you are old enough to know this, but it is a blotter. That's what the thing is. It's a blotter. When you used to use fountain pens, they would pool up in certain spots if you stopped in your, and it would smear. So you'd use a blotter. You'd take this thing and it would roll over. It had a piece of like parchment paper it would absorb the ink. That's what the damn thing is. It's not a sponge or a thing. It's a blotter.
It's been at least a decade since anyone said that word out loud before. That's
a blotter.
A blotter.
Well,
that's amazing. I'm learning. That's where the nitpick zone you learn in it.
He's a 60-plus-year-old man that does regularly use a fountain pen because normal pens can't really.
I respect that. That's awesome.
He has like a really expensive one too.
Oh yeah. And
you dip it in like pen. Like
I have a Mont Blanc.
Well, it's not.
My
a
wife
quill,
gave me
but
one for my 60th birthday, but I've used fountain pens for 35, 40 years because when you write as much as I do, by the end of the day, your hand gets tired unless you have a pen that really flows and does not drag. A ballpoint to me causes my hands to cramp up by the end of the day. So I've used a fountain pen. It really makes a difference, and I swear by them.
That's fair. And I'm a pen to paper guy too. I love, my mind works better when I'm physically writing things down as opposed to typing them. But
yeah,
I tend to be the opposite way, and I take all of my notes so then I can transfer them very easily between various devices, but to each their own. So, any further commentary or questions about the film?
Just one last thing, as idiotic as I thought the self-feeding device is, I was kind of heartbroken when the guy like who invented it, like they walked away from him and they just did the shot of him with his head down. He cared so much about that terrible invention. Yes. That's always a little tough.
Well, with any invention, like necessity is the mother of invention, but what problem was he actually solving? And I've seen people like talk about this in interviews and self-help and all this other stuff. But if you see a product that doesn't actually fix anything, you should run away because it's not actually solving anything. It's just making other people more wealthy.
And herein lies TikTok, because that's just basically it. Our Guinness sales are higher than they've ever been. And it's not just us. It's across the entire country because of TikTok. Because the younger generation sees Guinness and they try to split the G, which is you take your first sip of Guinness and you try to have the head of the beer amidst the middle part of the G in the Guinness glass. And because of that, Guinness sales are crazy all over the world. So who knew?
Yeah. I didn't even know that was a thing.
It is a thing.
Wow. As I've been saying, my most recent workplace proximity associate and I are about 8 years apart, and there is a definite gap between us. We had this entire debate that went into our office sphere over whether or not you've ever stolen a beer glass from a bar. I've never even thought to do that, but apparently this is a much more universal thing than I ever knew. But whatever,
Well, starting next week, you're going to have a office
workplace
space worker
proximity associate,
twice your age.
Well, that's not unusual for me. Most of the spaces I hang out with you in, I'm by far the youngest person by like 3 decades. You're usually the second youngest person in that room, which is saying something. But anyway, I digress. So with that, I would love to thank our guest for being back with us for his 18th time. Kieran, you are not currently scheduled to be back with us for a few months, and you will be back for a film that I've wanted to show my dad for several years, one that I caught during the pandemic, another one of these AFI completionist watches, A Place in the Sun, and you'll be back with us in April. But please, again, remind everybody what you've been working on and where they can find you.
It's Best Picture Cast, just how it sounds, Best Picture Cast. And we're out there covering all the Best Picture winners. We're getting to the end of the list. Please find us on all of our social media accounts. It could be Instagram, Twitter X, Blue Sky. We're Best Picture Cast, wherever you get your pods. And please give us a look on Patreon, patreon.com/Best Picture Cast. We have a fun time, man. It's not, listen, we're however into film you are, you aren't. If you're struggling with your watch list or what to watch next, if you look at our playlist and you find a film on there and you watch it and you listen to us, I think you'll find it to at least be fun. Rewarding, I'll leave that up to the listener, but it'll at least be a fun time. And that's also Best Picture Cast. Check us out. And I do want to say, I had to shout this out. My first appearance on the show was March 2022 here at Gmode. So it's been 3 years now. 3 years I've been doing this with you guys. It's crazy how time flies. And I want to say to you guys, thank you. And though we've never shaken hands or, cheersed glasses, spent a ton of time talking movies and sipping on beverages with you guys. And I have much love for you guys, and I'm looking forward to potentially seeing you this summer. We'll see how that works out.
Yep.
I'm hoping that.
But the feeling is mutual, my friend. We always love having you on, and we look forward to when you'll be back soon for a movie, again, that I very much appreciate. And Montgomery Clift is way underrated.
And George Stevens is underrated as well.
Fair enough. Dad, remaining thoughts for the week.
I can't believe we've come to the conclusion of a 6th season.
Well, we already concluded our 6th season.
I know, but 300 episodes. Wow. Yeah.
Yeah. We have the ability to go for a lot longer. Like we have no compromise of film that we can still cover if we're covering things like Zoolander and Princess Diaries this year.
Yeah, I know. I'm having fun, so as I'm starting to think about the winding down into retirement, and I'm reading all the articles, and there's a monthly column in the Wall Street Journal about retirement and how people lose their identity and focus of what they're trying to do. I get to play a quasi Hollywood insider.
Yeah, I suppose you do.
Yeah. At this point in time, I'm satisfied with where I've been with my career. I'd like to try to get things reorganized a little bit for the office, but I'm having fun, and that's ultimately what's important. And among our group of podcasters, I'm kind of, we have a couple of people who might be a little older than me, but I'm kind of the Yoda of the group. The wrinkle,
in that you don't speak always in coherent sentences. Yes, that makes sense.
And the wrinkled wise old man. So yes.
Yes, but nobody puppets Dana. Yeah.
But anyway.
Well, first, as we've been reflecting, I guess, here at the end for 6 seasons and our 6th anniversary and such, a fun 6 years with you and with all our many guests. A great thank you to all of our 5-time club members. I suppose I should just pull that up here just to celebrate them all individually a little bit, but forgive me here because I'm doing this in the moment. So obviously, Mom has been on now for 20 different episodes. Kieran, you've been on for 18. Peterson W. Hill, I guess relative latecomer comparatively, but 13 episodes in the bank. Rob Conlon, other than Mom, is the only other person who has been on the show every single season of the show.
Cool.
He's going to be back with us for all 3 Lord of the Rings movies in December.
Amazing.
You know, fun whenever he's going to come on. He already signed up for a couple of things next season to keep that run going, and we always look forward to having him back. Sarah was on last week with us. She got to her 10th episode. We do have a good time with her, even though I've been criticized at times for being a little bit more brotherly than I should, and I'll leave it at that.
Yeah, well. Okay.
Shane Rogers, over from Midnight Facts for Insomniacs. He's been on 7 times. Thank you to him. Andrew Corns, obviously. I mean, the show.
Said his name.
I did. Well, I mean, I have to recognize him here in this moment. I've recognized him on his own show and embarrassed the shit out of him. But, you know, yeah, in this particular capacity, a great debt of thanks to him in particular for not even necessarily all of his guest work, but obviously I think most people who have followed the show know all of his contributions and various different things closely held by this program.
Yeah.
That,
and he's moved on. He's hosting the Oscars this year, I think, right? Is it?
Yeah, I think I heard that.
Or the Writers Guild Awards, maybe.
Or
He's
maybe
moving up to
Conan is just throwing him across the stage, but who knows? Sarah Shea has been on now 7 times with us as well. My other sister, Allison, has been on with us 6 times. Walter Gaynor, another friend of mine from Podcast Town way back in the day, he's been on with us a bunch. And finally, Jesse Sertle, he's been on 5 times with us. We've loved having them all. We obviously have so many other great guests that we've had out there that have contributed in many ways to the show, and we wouldn't be what we are without both our guests, our general community that is expanded exponentially over the last few years, especially since we met Kieran and were introduced to a lot of the people in his orbit, but also to you, the fans and people. And we'd much appreciate, I know that everybody likes to celebrate themselves and think of how far they've come, but we don't come this far and do as many things as we have without our community and without our listeners. And so thank you to all of you as well on that front from the 135 different countries that we've been in.
No one does anything without many hands helping. So you can take all the pride you want in and of yourself, but no, it doesn't happen that way. There's somebody that helped you along the way, encouraged you, supported you, gave you a pat on the back, told you things would be all right when it wasn't clear if it would be to you. All of that matters. And so to that, big, wet, sloppy kiss to everybody.
I will admit there were many points during the course of this show where I wanted to stop, and there was really one thing that kept me going through a lot of those things. And I knew that doing this show and doing it together meant a lot to you, Dad. And so ultimately, the point of doing the show, as much as we enjoy everybody else, it is something we do together. And that's always what the show is going to be.
Hell yeah. Group hug, group virtual hug.
Now, a final note here, as Dana makes his guttural noises there that are quite unpleasant. I did look up a couple of the other Chaplin films on the final breakdown of the CLP submissions that I guess maybe didn't go out to the public. City Lights was at 167, just below the zone of interest. And below that, The Great Dictator was at 180. And I know that was on Andrew Corns' submission.
All right, so I was off. I thought City Lights would be higher above this one. So
both of those films finished above Anchorman, above Ghostbusters, and above A Place in the Sun that we're going to be talking about. So, just
I'm
for some
looking forward
added
to seeing A Place in the Sun.
I'm just happy to be on the revisit of Unforgiven so I can get it above Waterboy.
Well, you are not the only one that will be attending that revisit.
It still will go above Waterboy, I would think. But unless you brought in like a Clint Sabator, I don't know.
Well, you're gonna have to lobby Peterson.
Okay, well, I mean, Peterson's not gonna. We'll get ahead of.
Peterson is a wild card sometimes.
We'll get ahead of Waterboy, I would hope.
Waterboy.
Jesus. This is like before my first appearance on this show. That's what I listened to, and at the end of it, it goes up, and it's just behind Waterboy. I'm like, what am I getting into here? Christ.
Yeah.
Oh
okay.
God.
Last thing I'll mention for this week is that, and I have not shared this publicly or frankly with anybody in my orbit, I'm going to tease something. I am working on developing an additional project and thing of content that I'm a bit excited about. It's something I've wanted to do for quite a while. It involves somebody that all of us in this current chat in this episode know quite well. And we'll just find out here in the relative future. I would guess before the next couple of months are out, this will be a thing, but it's in the works. So that's all I'm going to tease, and that's all I'm going to say about that. But that looks like a good spot to leave it for this episode. Thank you for listening. I do wish we could chat longer, but I'm having an old friend for dinner. Next week, for our 301st episode, we welcome our newest celebrity guest and superfan, Ryan Cunningham, to the show to discuss the animated noir caper Zootopia from 2016, celebrating its 10th anniversary, directed by Byron Howard and Rich Moore, written by Jared Bush and Phil Johnston, cinematography by Nathan Warner and Brian Leach, music by Michael Giacchino, editing by Fabrienne Brawley and Jeremy Milton, starring Jennifer Goodwin, Jason Bateman, Idris Elba, and Jenny Slate. You won't want to miss that one, so watch into the show by searching the Real Good app to find where it's streaming for you.
That's REELGOOD.
Please like, follow, rate, and review, or whatever on whichever platform you have so that more can join in our fun. You can also email the show at RonnieDuncanStudios.com or greatestalltimemoviepodcast@gmail.com, or find us on YouTube, Instagram, Twitter, Letterboxd, Blue Sky, TikTok, or Threads at the handle @GModePodcast. Greatest Movie of All Time is a production of Brian Duncan Studios. Our show is mixed and edited and written by Thomas Duncan. Our music is thanks to Purple Planet Music. Our distributor is Captivate FM. Our technical provider is Riverside FM.